protagonist of Silent Hill 2 is James Sunderland. When the game begins, James comments that his wife, Mary Shepard Sunderland, has been dead for 3 years. A mysterious letter in Mary's handwriting arrives sometime later, affirming that she is waiting for him in her special place somewhere in Silent Hill. After arriving in town, James is drawn into a series of bizarre and nightmarish events that force him to question his sanity, morality, memory, and personality. Mary portrays James as kind. In her letter to Laura, she describes him as a bit sullen and says he doesn't talk much, all the while being sweet underneath his enigmatic exterior. In general, James is polite to other characters he meets in Silent Hill. One example of that is when he tries to help Angela Orozco cope with her emotional distress and attempts to reach out to touch her shoulder to comfort her, only to fail. By the time James first encounters Eddie Dombrowski, he's concerned for his well-being and advises him to skip town. Here he also expresses his concern for Laura, trying to follow her around Silent Hill to keep her out of harm's way. The darker side of James, however, is revealed in some of his actions. After Mary became ill, James lost most of his confidence and self-esteem and suffered profound grief and depression after her subsequent death. His conviction is that she died because of her illness, and he refuses to accept he had any part in it. At times, James can be perceived as a coward, fleeing from his guilt and blame. If he is directly questioned about the truth or something uncomfortable for him, James will often avoid eye contact, lower his gaze, turn his back, or remain silent. James is on the verge of killing himself, but seems to deny his feelings. Originally, James came to Silent Hill to achieve that goal, and does so at the end of the ending in water. In the novelization, James at one point says, "Actually, I guess I am dead. Heart's as good as dead anyway." He didn't have a sense of loss and just felt that his life was no longer worth living. He'd grown indifferent. Work and leisure, none of it mattered anymore. James' mental state is quite shaky, and he often takes unnecessary risks or acts recklessly. He leaves his car door open, fails to turn off his flashlight when hiding from Pyramid Head, and those are just some examples out of many. He reaches into a hole in the wall a second time after pricking himself on something, dunks his unprotected hand into a filthy toilet to retrieve a wallet, forgets to wash his hands, leaps into deep wells, and asks a visibly trigger-happy Eddie if he's gone crazy. James also wonders at one point, did that just move, or was it only my imagination? When checking a dead body. Should the player approach Angela in the graveyard a second time, she will ask, "Aren't you looking for someone?" And a forgetful James will reply, "That's right," before walking away. James' determination to discover the truth about Mary's fate, coupled with his apparent suicidal tendencies, might explain his reckless and illogical conduct. While James mourns and grieves, he says to Angela, "I guess I really don't care if this place is dangerous." Later, when Angela asks why James is looking for his wife, if she is dead, he replies, "Don't worry, I'm not crazy, at least, I don't think so." The novelization states that James was an expert in athletics in his school days. Employed as a clerk for a small business, possibly in Ashfield. James' father is Frank Sunderland, who is the superintendent of an apartment building in Ashfield. James and Mary first met at a party held by a mutual friend. Their affection progressed from a fiery affair to a peaceful and stable relationship. Before Mary and James got married, James often listened to Mary playing the piano. She was fond of the piano, and although she wasn't very good, James enjoyed listening to her play. Before the events of Silent Hill 2, Mary and James chose to take a vacation in Silent Hill after perusing a brochure of the town. They lodged at the Lakeview Hotel, where James recorded a videotape of Mary. She mentioned on the videotape she'd heard that Silent Hill was often a sacred place and that she dearly loved the town and would love to go back there one day. She made James promise to take her there again, but the videotape ended before James could respond. Leaving town, James forgets the videotape at the hotel, and the couple abandons Silent Hill. 3 years before the game, Mary suffers from a terminal illness and deteriorates as she has violent mood swings, often snapping at James. Her physician predicted she had less than 3 years to live and advised James that there was no effective treatment. James quizzed Mary's doctors about her illness and couldn't believe they were going to let her die. He scoured medical books for information about Mary's illness but couldn't find anything useful. When she was even more ill than before, James paid Mary fewer visits because she'd become too volatile. Her mood swings left him puzzled about what was right to do. Mary and James' wishes to have children were also cut short by the disease. James began to drink heavily to escape his pain and loneliness, but it never made any difference. James harbored sexual frustration, but couldn't do anything about it thanks to his marriage. This frustration was represented by Maria in the game, as well as by various creatures during James' search. Mary grew to be a burden to James and he gradually began to resent her. At the same time, watching the person he loved suffer so much haunted him. The emotional trauma and emptiness left James in a constant state of mourning. When he couldn't take it anymore, he crept over to Mary's bed and kissed her on the forehead before suffocating her with a pillow. After Mary's death, James lugged her body to his car and put her in the back seat and not in the trunk. It's unknown how much time passed between Mary's death and James' arrival at Silent Hill. The novelization says he killed Mary just a few days ago. If James lived in Ashfield, the commute between there and Silent Hill would be about half a day.